Hi, hi, this is Noma Dimitri, and today we're gonna talk tulips. Here they are. And as you know, tulips will usually pop up in your garden in the spring, in the very early spring. In fact, they're going to be one of the flowers that are gonna pop out and bloom in the garden earlier than anything else, even earlier than poppies, for example. Here's the poppy plant, and it is not even near making flowers or buds for flowers, whereas the tulip has just completely is at its full glory, and there it is. We're gonna go a little bit closer, and look at these guys close up. Look how pretty they are. They are light pink on the outside and deeper pink inside, and they've been here for a few years now, and they're starting to naturalize. So the tulip looks like a fragile thing, but if it is indeed, it's a very fine and fragile thing with its beautiful leaves and everything else. But if it's such a fragile thing, how come it blooms so early and is one of the pioneers, is one of the first bloomers? And how come it does it during a time of the year that's extremely dangerous to so many other plants, a time of the year where there is sun, but there's also the possibility of deadly frost, which kills everything else. So we're going to talk a little bit about why and how this is done. Number one, the tulip is not a fragile thing. It's actually an extremely hardy thing, and I will tell you in a bit how that works. It's an extremely hardy thing because it seeks what's called a first mover advantage. That means that the tulip says, okay, during the period when other flowers are not yet coming up, I'm going to do my very best to be the first one to bloom, so that all the pollinators that during that period, there aren't that many of them, are going to come to me. And I'm going to be really, really pretty and attractive. I'm going to have a big flower with a nice color, a nice stem, and lots of pollen. And I'm going to attract these pollinators, these bees, butterflies, what have you. So they come to me and they pollinate me and they fertilize me, and therefore I have all the advantages of this fertilization, which is exchange of DNA between the different flowers, etc., etc. So in order to achieve this, the tulip must be pretty hardy. It must be able to, number one, push itself through all this dead matter that has accumulated during the winter. It has to be able to come through the soil that perhaps is a little bit cold and a little deadly, and most importantly, it's got to have enough antifreeze on its leaves and on its flowers. So should it have been foolish to come out a little bit too early, its leaves and its flowers are not going to freeze and therefore destroy the entire experiment. So all these things are what the tulip can do, and there we go again near the tulip, and you see how pretty it is. So it's a hardy thing, and it's a smart thing, and has a particular strategy, like so many things in nature have a particular strategy. Now, how is that accomplished? Think about it. We have, in the winter, the ground is bare, it's covered with snow, and all of a sudden, this damn beautiful thing, very quickly, it goes up, it makes its leaves, it produces its leaves that you're seeing here. These are the leaves of the tulip. These are also tulip leaves, but they're going to come up a little bit later, and then it creates this spectacular flower. Now, how does it do this? Where does it get the energy? These are also days where the sun is not to be taken for granted as well. So where does it take all this energy to produce from nothing, because nothing is above ground as far as the tulip is concerned during the winter, to do this? The secret is, and the way it does this is with this, the bulb. The bulb looks just like an onion, as you can see. It is like a typical peeled onion that you know. And this is the part of the tulip that is underground during the winter. This part of the tulip is full of incredible amount of energy, which is sufficient, and a little more than sufficient, because nature is also a little bit conservative, to fuel this entire process. So from the center of this, as you know, if you ever have onions, it looks just like an onion. If you have onions in your refrigerator and you keep them too long, they start pushing out of here and creating a plant, and the onion starts growing and it's green and etc, etc. So this is actually the part of the tulip that's underground, and at some point it gets triggered by temperature, by different things, let's not get into that right now, to produce this plant. As this plant comes through, let's say 30-40 a foot of 30-40 centimeters or a foot of soil to push through, it's got to be pretty strong to be able to push through all the soil and stone and everything else, and it's got to reach the outside world. So the battery, the energy for this incredible process is contained inside this bulb, inside this onion looking thing. Once the plant hits the surface of the earth, then the green parts of it, the leaf part of it, is actually able to start photosynthesizing, which means receiving energy from the sunlight, and then it can continue growing, produce more leaves, and eventually fuel the growth of the beautiful flower using also solar energy. But as we said, in the spring, we're not guaranteed a fantastic sun, so the solar energy part is not guaranteed. Therefore, this particular thing must have enough juice, enough energy, enough battery power to fuel the tulip's growth until it gets to the desired end on the flower. The final step, what happens afterwards? So this thing has flowered, it's beautiful, it's here, the pollinators are coming, they are pollinating one flower and the other, there's exchange of DNA, blah, 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 blah. The moment that is done, the flower is no longer important. It's like, we're done here, we've got the DNA of another flower, blah, 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 and the flower can go ahead and die. So what you will see in your garden, if you have this, a few days to a couple of weeks afterwards, depending on the pollination, these flowers will actually wither and die. The thing that will stay will be the leaves. The leaves will take maybe a month, maybe a little longer to survive, until they die. So they will stay nice and green, the stem of the flower will be gone, but the leaves will be there photosynthesized. So what are they doing? During that time, the leaves are photosynthesizing like crazy. Why? Because this important part of the tulip, the bulb, which is underground, has become very, very small and weak because it gave all its juice to grow the plant. So the leaves of the tulip are very busy afterwards producing energy from the sun to store it back down and recreate this guy. And recreate this guy for next year, for next spring. Okay, so that's the whole job that they do. If they've done the job well and there is enough energy and the pollination has happened well and everything else, the second miracle that will occur is that the tulip bulb may split. It may actually make a second one. And this explains what people call naturalizing, that a tulip or any bulb type of flower can actually naturalize. That means that there is enough energy going around between this and between what we get from the sunlight to actually not only invest in creating a good one of these for next year to fuel the flowers of next year, but we can actually produce a second one. We can split a second smaller one on the side of this that will actually become its own tulip. So this is the way in which, me having started a few years ago with 3 tulips here, I now have about 15, because these guys seem to be happy enough being here so that they can have little children, and then I can have more and more pink in the garden. So a long video, sorry, but it's a long story. The tulip is a complex one, and what works for the tulips is the same story with most of the flowers that you get in bulbs. It's a similar idea. Some of the features may be different, but the idea is always the same. The bulb is the battery, the leaves bring the juice down to the bulb, and the flower is used for exchanging DNA. So, Noma Dimitri from a beautiful spring day in front of the tulips. Take care and happy gardening. Bye.